Oh, welcome back to Lost Records, Bloom and Rage. Today we're going to talk about how to write. In order to write functional scenes, you have to know what the function of a scene is going to be, and so let's talk about it a little bit. We have a scene where we want to bond these four girls together, and so we create this secret base for them. They clean it up, they decorate it, and at the end they have a secret base. Now the important part here is that at the end they have a secret base. This isn't about a fait accompli, it's about doing the task, right? So our structural scene is fixing that ending up. That ending is going to happen, we lay the groundwork. But as for the specifics of the ending, every scene creates power, creates energy, creates emotional investment. And we want to make sure that goes to the right place, otherwise the scene is useless. In our story, the secret base is not particularly important. What is important is the power of punk music, so we want our energy to go into the power of punk music instead. And that means that our final capstone element, our final capstone moment, is going to be the girls creating their band's logo. They create it in the base as a reward for having finished cleaning up the base. They make it into their band headquarters. This should redirect the power that we get from this scene into the concept of punk music, rather than just leaving it here in the facility. We also tried this earlier. When the four girls were wandering around in the woods, we decided that the point of that should also be funneled into punk music, so we made it about filming a music video, and then the final element, the capstone, was showing the music video. And that didn't work out so well, since it was very clearly not about filming a music video, and the music video was not a music video. But the idea is similar, and in this scene we're going to do better. We're going to set it up right. The capstone scene is the four girls coming together to make their logo, so therefore the rest of the scene should be about how those four girls didn't start together. We'll scatter them apart so that they clean the base, each in their own little way, and then as the player helps, the player will drag them all together. In this case, it's very easy for us to do that. We just have them cleaning different parts of the house, and then when we help them, they come in and they just sit in some central area together. We can give this a little bit more elegance if one of the characters stands out a little bit. So Kat can stay outside. She does not join the group because at the moment, she's mostly friends with you, the player. She hasn't really become friends with the band yet. She doesn't feel like she belongs with them just yet. So just to add a little bit of poignance, we'll make her gathering spot outside, as far from the other two as possible. Now, if our system had been thought up more carefully, what we could have done is we could make the gathering spot on the inside and the outside in the same place, but with a wall between them. That would have been ideal, but our facility isn't set up like that, and we don't want to redesign our level, so we're just going to do what we do best, which is make do. So the gathering spot on the inside and the outside are not linked, they are quite far apart. So the beating heart of the scene is already in place, the progression is set up. The girls arrive at the hut, they split apart, each one of them handles their own little part, and we go help them, and when we help them, they retire to some passive location that tells us who they are and who they're friends with. At the very end, we all come together and we make our band logo together. This should be a pretty nice little experience. However, obviously we need a little bit more play than just going up to a girl and clicking on her, so we come up with a bunch of meat. This filler content is going to be what gives the game its tension, gives the game its pacing, it gives traction to the player's interactions. So even though the scene can be summarized as go in, help each girl, then build a band logo, we're going to have actual stuff that the player needs to do, or can do. Now, we've already created the idea of points of interest, so we can just use those. We have a lot of points of interest that we can reuse because this set is a pre-existing set that we use throughout the entire game, so we can have the various seeded elements from other scenes also play a part in this scene. So you can take pictures of stuff, you can pick stuff up and look at it. We can also add in some custom cleaning points of interest, such as cleaning cobwebs or, sweeping or stuff like that. These can all be optional or semi-optional. They exist to give the player traction, something for the player to engage with, so they don't have to be very firm. We make helping each girl a little bit of an event in itself. So we either make it a mini game or a multi-part affair where you can do one bit and then you have to go do something else and then come back. So in Kat's case, we help her and then she gets a splinter and we have to realize that we can use the first aid kit to fix her splinter. In Autumn's case, we have to clean out the fireplace with her. So we actually, click on things to clean out the fireplace. In all situations, we also allow the character to have meaningful discussions with this other character. So we can have our talk with Autumn, we can have our talk with Kat, we can have our talk with Nora, and we learn more about them. And because we are terrible game designers, we give those things point values, and if you don't do them right, you get the bad ending. Okay, whatever. Let's not do that part in the future. Fundamentally, a lot of our opportunistic play here, both in terms of mini-games and in terms of just general points of interest, come from sharing the same assets with earlier and later scenes. But we're not simply reusing those assets blindly. This is a fulcrum scene where the set changes from the old version to the new version, so we should come up with events that show that change happening. We clean up spiderwebs. Those spiderwebs existed in the old version, we take them away for the next version. That's us cleaning them up. There are things we can pick up and look at, but this is probably the last time we're going to look at old things, and we're going to have new things in those areas later, so we should have that be part of the vibe we're getting. All of this together gives us a fairly cheap way to create 1 million points of interest because we already have most of the assets we're going to need, and this is our transition point, so we can use those assets one last time or for the first time. Works well. From here we can fill out the flesh of the scene by using the standard point of interest approach, where we want to have clusters of points of interest, we want to have subspaces, we want to have some medium range points of interest that pull the player in, we want to have a variety of tasks scattered so that we have some points of interest that are just examining, some that are changing the scene, some that are for our camera, some that are dialogue, some that are active and, push their way into the player's conscious, and some that are passive and wait for you. By trying to fill out all of these details, we can create a scene that feels lively and interesting while adhering to our fundamental progression. And as long as the player is having an interesting time in this scene doing these things, every moment they spend there is going to be energy generated by the scene that we invest into our core ideal of the magic of punk. So it's important that we do have enough stuff to make the player care, and we arrange it in a way that helps the player to care. Every scene in the game is written in a similar way, this functional approach. But not every scene pulls it off perfectly, and I think that's largely due to the difficulties of game dev. I have a feeling that there were a lot of balls in the air, and this scene, managed to get through largely unscathed, where other scenes didn't quite pull it off. I think that the forest scene that we went through earlier, where we got to try and film our music video, was probably just a forest scene originally without any discussion of the music video, because it doesn't make any sense as a music video scene. There's no music video related content in it, except one optional side task. So to me it's clear that some scenes are better at this than others, and I would assume that it's due to production issues, not due to any fundamental misunderstanding of how to write. In my opinion, functional scene planning is an incredibly important tool for an indie writer, and I think that even a non-writer can write functional stories if they understand that every scene they make has a point, and in general, that point happens near the end of the scene. Whatever that point is, the rest of the scene should set it up. So in this case, the girls come together and paint the band logo. So our choices for setting it up would be, well, they can gather painting supplies, they can gather girls, so we want those things to be scattered. We can choose one, so you'll just choose the girls. The girls are scattered, and we gather the girls because they're more interesting than painting supplies. We can work that sort of stuff out, we can plan it ahead, and we can create a scene that supports the final goal. Once you have those bones, you add the meat, you add the muscle, you add the skin, you add the fat, and you make sure that every player feels like the scene is worth playing. Not just worth going through, but worth playing. And in this case, our play is limited to point of interest clicking, so we want to make sure that we have a variety of those that follow good rules, on how to keep the player interested in clicking on shit. You can go through and look at any scene in this game with the same kind of eye, and you'll quickly see how it's structured in the same way for the same ends. Every scene has a purpose, and it gets resolved near the end of the scene because that's how scenes are structured. The rest of the scene supports it. I hope that was fun. See ya.
I'd never met someone who seemed as weird as me, so it felt like totally meant to be.